Thank you for tuning in to RTM Nation Online, where we believe that you will receive the abundance of peace, prosperity, security, stability, health, healing, and truth. If you would like to learn more about the ministry, click the link below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into the message.
We're going to pick up where we left off. We're in John chapter 8. All of us enjoying the opportunity to get more in tune with a decision to change. Now, John chapter 8 begins with the account of the woman caught in adultery. And true to form, you will more than likely read this account more than you probably would like to, but it's a good thing. For a quick summary, to let you know where we are, for those of you who may not have been with us, we said that there are two things that you want to make sure you get a grip on if you're going to go down that road of really making that decision to change. That is, we want to get spiritual self-control. Everyone say spiritual self-control. Spiritual self-control. We also want to get mental self-control. Say mental self-control. We are focusing now on spiritual self-control. We said that there were 5 steps, so we could explain in 5 steps how you get that spiritual self-control. The first step we picked out in this account of John chapter 8 is we went to the last part of Jesus's encounter where he told her in verse 11, she said, "No man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." So the first step was we need to make a concerted effort to avoid those things that we know trip us up. The second one, which is where we're going to pick up from, was when we were looking in verses 6 and then reading that down to when he got to verse 10, we learned that Jesus was talking to these scribes and Pharisees. We called them jokers. So he was talking to them jokers about the situation. And when he got done with them, after he had gotten them to where they depart one by one, that is the first time he ever spoke to the woman caught in adultery. What we concluded was this: just because you don't hear God talking, just because you don't feel like he's there, it doesn't mean that God's not working for you. It doesn't mean that God's not working for me. It may just be, instead of taking the time to try to talk to us, he's dealing with the situation in the spirit. So we can't let the fact that we don't feel God working throw us into unbelief. Let's go a little deeper in that today. If you don't mind, please turn to Daniel chapter 10. What's the deal with this unbelief and belief? I have concluded that time is one of the enemy's greatest rationales to throw us into unbelief. If we are believing God for something and we just give it a little time and it hasn't happened yet, we can easily get thrown into, well, I just don't think it ever is going to happen, or get thrown into unbelief. In Daniel chapter 10, we have an account where Daniel is basically trying to ask God for understanding on a certain situation. What we're going to learn is that while he's waiting on God's prayer, on his prayer to be answered, it looks as if nothing's happening. But when the angel of God finally does show up, he gives Daniel a right perspective on what's really happening in the spirit based on what he's praying. I'm going to take this out of the Message Bible. It reads like this: in the 3rd year of the reign of King Cyrus of Persia, a message was made plain to Daniel. Basically, God gave him a vision. whose Babylon name was Belteshazzar. The message was true. It dealt with a big war. He understood the message, the understanding coming by revelation. Now, I'm going to skip down, and I'm using my wife's newfangled device here. You know what? You know what I learned? My sons would generally help me with all the Bible stuff. But since they've, moved on and started doing other things and are not here with me, my wife has started helping me. Well, when I was listening to the message from last week, when I was handing her stuff, I was saying, "Thanks, sweetheart." "Thanks, honey." And so I'm thinking, if somebody that's not here is listening to that, they're like, who is he calling sweetheart? They're either thinking that he's a very nice young man, or they're thinking that that's just inappropriate. So I gotta be careful with that. I can't swipe that. My hands are sticky. I probably put it in some mode. Just give me the regular old, same old King James. I didn't break it, I promise. All right, let's get back on track. Go to verse 7 in the King James. "And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but the great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves." Now, basically what's happening is Daniel is getting ready to have his encounter with the greater power here. "Therefore I was left alone and saw the great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no more strength." It was just so awestruck that his body was going limp on him. "Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then I was in a deep sleep on my face, and my face towards the ground. And behold, a hand touched me, which set me up on my knees and upon the palms of my hands." God will lift you up. When you feel as if you have something going on that's far beyond your ability to handle, God will lift you up. But let's continue. Verse 11. "And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee I am now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. He said, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day thou didst not set thine heart to understand, to chasten thyself before God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words." What is he saying? From the first day you prayed to God, God heard you. From the first time you opened your mouth to God, God heard you. So, number one, Daniel, I don't want you to think that when you pray, your words don't reach heaven. "But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me, and 20 days, almost 3 weeks, there was a battle in the spirit." This angelic being is saying, I came with your answer, but for 21 days, I had to fight in the spirit because I had opposition to getting you the answer that you requested. You don't see it, Daniel. But you need to recognize that there is a spiritual world that can keep things a little hindered, but don't ever think that they're not on the way. Amen. "And when he had spoken such words to me, I set my face to the ground." Oh, I skipped one. "The prince of Persia withstood me, and 20 days, but lo, Michael," another angel, archangel, "one of the chief princes came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia." So he had to get help in the spirit to get the prayer there. So just because you don't hear God doesn't mean that he's not on his way. Say that with me. Just because I don't hear God, it doesn't mean my answered prayer isn't on the way. Go to Genesis 15. Your belief is key in settling your spirit. The items that we're on right now is simple. You have to believe God, and then you have to rest in that belief. If you elect not to rest in that belief, if you're not careful, you will begin to take actions to help God out. And believing in God is not helping him out. As a matter of fact, believing in God is quite the opposite. It's hands off. Believing in God is letting him know you believe he got it, and you're not going to spend one more moment of your mental capacity worrying about it. We see that with Abraham. Or in Genesis 15, his name is Abram. If we step through this account quickly, what you'll find is if we went all the way back to chapter 12, when Abram is 75 years old, God is like, hey, I want you to get away from your family. Let's do something together. Time goes by. Now, he's 86 years old when he has Ishmael. We'll talk about him. Then some more time goes by, and then he's 100 years old when he has Isaac. So there's a lot of time happening. But let's see what Abram does. Starting in verse 15, it says, chapter 15, verse 1. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house, this Eleazar of Damascus? God said, hey, listen, I'm going to make your seed go beyond the sands of the earth. At this point, Abram is saying, okay, God, I know I heard you, but how are you going to make my seed be that large if you haven't even given me a child yet? For, and behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now towards the heaven and tell me the stars, if you will be able to number them. God says, no, you're going to have somebody. You're going to have a child, but that child's going to come out of your own bowels. Now, here's the funny part about that. He told him that you will have a child birthed out of your house, but he left out, I'm assuming God just assumed, that Abram knew that was coming from Sarah, his wife, not just in his house. When God doesn't give us all the instructions like we want him to, sometimes we do a plug-in. We do a substitute. If I can use a football analogy, since we're all dressed, some better than others, and we're all dressed a certain way, I could say this. When we don't get all the information from God like we feel we should, sometimes we call an audible. For those of you who are not very familiar with football, an audible is the coach has already given you the play, but right before you hike the ball, the quarterback decides to do something different. In life, I've done it. I've called an audible. Nevertheless, if we were to continue to read down in this chapter, it says that Abram believed God, and it was counted to him for righteousness. But then turn to chapter 16. Chapter 16, they're getting ready to call an audible. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. So, no children yet, God. From back when you told me, no children yet. And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And she said, Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord has restrained me from bearing. I take that to mean he ain't did what he said yet. He's restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram, and dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, and Abram to be his wife. And verse 4 says she conceived. So they called an audible. But this is not the child that God wanted them to have. God was wanting him to have something split. Go to 17. When you get to 17, slide quickly down to verse 5. He's still talking about, listen, I'm going to make a covenant with you. Then he changes his name. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations I have made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings will come of thee, and I will establish my covenant between thee and thy seed. In verse 8, I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee a land wherein thou art stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Now he also goes down, and in verse 15, he changes Sarai's name. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I want you to read verse 16 with me. It reads like this. And I will bless her and give thee a son of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. So there he gets even more specific. Since you've been calling audibles on me, I need to be more specific. No, boy, it's going to be your wife. It's going to be Sarah. Nobody else. But remember, Ishmael has already been born. So time is working. Listen to a couple of stats here. When God told Abram to go from the beginning in chapter 12, he was 75 years old. When Ishmael was born, he was 86. Now, as we progress through this, by the time the real child of the covenant is born, he's 100. All of that time going by is time that the enemy has to work on his heart and his mind and his spirit that God is not going to do what God said he's going to do. When you get in that position, we have to be careful, because if we decide to get off track with God, he could have got off track when he was 96. He could have got off track when he was 98. He could have got off track one day before the child of the covenant was conceived. You don't know how close you are from getting exactly what you've been praying and believing God for. Your job, my job, is just to believe, not call an audible, but just stick in there until God brings it through. Amen. Go to Genesis 21. When you get to Genesis 21, verses 1 through 3, it reads, And the Lord visited Sarah as he had spoken, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born to him, whom Sarah bare, Isaac. And verse 5 says, And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. Go to chapter 22. That was a long setup for this point. When we're talking about making our belief strong, Abram transitioned to Abraham finally was in a position to where he had actually received from God the promise that God said. Nothing solidifies your belief like once God comes through for you. I always appreciate when God does something for somebody else. I loves it when he touched my moms and loves it when he touched my cousins and my aunties and my friends. But God, it ain't nothing like you doing something for me. Amen. Once you have had experience with God doing something for you, which only comes if you wait on him, once you have that experience, all of a sudden, your belief is in such a strong position to where your spiritual strength is unbreakable. Now we're going to have a situation in chapter 22 where God is going to ask the same man that got with his wife and created Ishmael to sacrifice the very promise that God had given him. And watch it, my boy don't even blink an eye. Because my belief is strong now. Because I've waited it out before. I've seen God come through before. Once you know he's done it one time, there is no pressure on you to believe that he will do it again. Amen. The enemy can't bring that to you no more. Yes. That's why you have to wait on it. That's why you have to let patience have her perfect work. Because once her work gets done and you get that evidence, the enemy can't come at you like that no more. Genesis 22. Starting in verse 2. And he, meaning God talking to Abraham, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get up unto the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee. Not only do I want you to go sacrifice him, I'm going to also tell you where to sacrifice him. Sliding down to verse 4. Just puddle jumping here to just save some time. Then on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far off. And Abraham said unto the young men, abide here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come unto you again. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. So he was old enough to carry wood, so he wasn't a little fella. Old enough to understand. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and he went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, a grown child. All right, Daddy, we've done this over and over for as long as I remember. I see the knife, I see the wood, I see the fire, but I don't see no lamb. I don't see no bull. Don't we need something to sacrifice? He's thinking. Never put your brain down. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I, my son. And he said, behold, the son talking to the daddy, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham, say in Abraham. And Abraham said, this ain't the same Abraham from chapters before. This is an Abraham that's had a belief encounter with God, that God will do everything God said he would do. So this Abraham is an Abraham full of faith. And Abraham said, my son, God will provide. He could have stopped right there. That's where we should stop. When the enemy comes our way and telling us, what if it don't happen? But God. What if they say this to you? But God. What if this goes down? But God. God will provide. God will supply. God will make up the difference. And Abraham said, my son, God will provide himself a lamb for the burnt offering. So they went, both of them together. And you know the story. God did provide. God did provide. Go to Mark chapter 9. when it comes to believing, just as with Abraham, belief can get all muddled up when time and past experiences come into play. Yes. Let's look at this account. We touched on it a little bit last week, but now let's go a little deeper in it. In Mark chapter 9, starting in verse 14, it's the account of the father with the demonic child. Starting in verse 16. Jesus had previously noticed a bunch of commotion, and it says, and he, meaning Jesus, asked the scribes, what question ye with them? Meaning, what are you doing with my disciples? Why are you questioning them? And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which has a dumb spirit, and whithersoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth and gnasheth with his teeth, and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. Say, they could not. They could not. And he, meaning Jesus, answered him, saith, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him to me. Now, I found that interesting. He just kind of said that, kind of like somebody would shoot out some buckshot. I don't read that as if he looked at the man or the disciple. It's kind of like, oh, faithless generation. Y'all, everybody, how long should I be with y'all? Bring the boy to me. And they brought him to him. And when he saw them, straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed the foaming. And he asked the father, how long is it ago since this came to him? And he said, of a child. So he's been this way as long as I've had him. And oftentimes it has cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believes. I love the Message version, the Message Bible in that verse. It says like this. Jesus says, if I look it up for yourself because I'm getting ready to dramatize it. But here's the sentiment. There is no ifs with believers. If you are a cook, you cook. If you are a teacher, you teach. If you are a builder, you build. If you are a believer, you believe. Amen. Jesus says there is no ifs with believers. But look at this situation from the mind of the Father. And let's put ourselves in that situation. How is it that the enemy can use time? How can the enemy use experience? How can the enemy use something that has gone on for some period in your life? How can he use that as a rationale to break down your and my belief? Consider this. This has been something going on since the boy was a child. So this is all the Father has known. There are times in our life that we exist like that. We don't know any better. Everybody in our family has gotten divorced. Everybody in my family has been incarcerated. Nobody in my family has had two parents. Nobody in my family has had a decent job or owned a business. Nobody in my family has been to college or got any kind of education worthwhile. Nobody in my family has ever become anything worthwhile. It has always been such. So why should I believe? Because this Jesus tells me any different, because this Bible tells me any different, because this pastor tells me any different, why should I believe it should be any different? The enemy works on that. But not only that, notice he brought the child to the disciples. So the desire to believe was there. But it says they could not cure him. I've tried this Jesus thing before. I've tried church before. I've believed in what a pastor told me before. I've heard all that before, and it didn't work in my life then. Why should I believe it should work now? What we don't realize is the issue is not in the power of the word, but the person working it. They brought them to a group of disciples that wasn't ready to handle the situation at hand. That's why Christ ends up telling them at the end, boys, the reason why you couldn't do anything, because this kind comes out only by prayer and fasting. But notice, Jesus was able to solve the problem. Why was he able to solve the problem? If you look in that where the Father responds, Jesus is telling him, if you believe, the daddy says, starting right here in 23, and Jesus said, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believe. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears in his eyes, Lord, I believe. Help thy my unbelief. You know, I always thought that was a weird kind of verse until I really dug into it. The man says, God, I believe, but in the same voice he says, help my unbelief. So I just took some time and I dug in. Everybody say dug in. Dug in. So we took it and we dug in. Listen to what I unearthed. Going through commentaries, going through different versions of the Bible, going through the Greek dictionary. In essence, what he was conveying is, my unbelief is strong. Now, why was his unbelief strong? It was from a child. I took him to your disciples who are supposed to be a reflection of you. What else am I supposed? God, I'm human. Everything in my purview is saying that nothing can work. My unbelief is strong. Help me defeat my unbelief. Help me defeat my unbelief. Unbelief in the Greek, as used there, is a word I'm probably going to butcher, but do my best. It says apistos, A-P-I-S-T-O-S. It's a combination of two words, not plus the word faithful. Not faithful. But not just simply not faithful. Listen to it in its fullness. In the Helps Study Bible, it came out like this. It refers to not faithful because you're unpersuaded. Not faithful because you have not yet been convinced. Not faithful, not because you don't want to believe, but because no evidence has come your way yet to drive home the fact that you really should believe. So he's asking Christ, I know my unbelief is strong. Help convince me. And I submit to you that if you stick with God, he is in the business of giving us all the evidence we need to convince ourselves we should trust him. As long as we don't break off too early, as long as we don't call an audible and get off track, as long as we give it the time necessary, we will get the evidence we need to stand firm and solidify our belief. Step 3. You must recognize that God is not holding you in a place of condemnation. That God is not holding you in a place of condemnation. Thank you. Go back to our John chapter 8. When you get to John chapter 8, back in our woman caught in adultery, we're going to end up zeroing in on verses 10 and 11. Although we haven't read this all the way through, for those of you who have never read this account, or for those of you who weren't here, Jesus was in the temple. There were some folks, some individuals that brought to him a woman caught into adultery, and they basically were trying to trick Jesus into getting into a position to discredit Christ. It had nothing to do about the woman in adultery and everything about them going after Jesus. Verse 10. When Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said to her, "Woman, where are thine accusers? Has no man condemned thee?" She said, "No, no man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go forth and sin no more." Family, the world might condemn you, but God doesn't. Friends and family might condemn you, but God doesn't. Now here's a sneaky one. You may condemn yourself. You may condemn yourself. There are things that happen in our life that we can be so stuck in that memory that we won't let our own self recover. God is not in the business of condemnation. He's in the business of saving. Anything that tells you that God has a finger of condemnation on you is not God. He asked her, "Where are your accusers? Did anybody condemn you?" "I don't see nobody here trying to condemn me. Neither do I. Go forth and sin no more." Listen to these. In the eyes of God, your past condition, which is where we're going next, your past condition does not restrict your future state once you come in contact with Christ. Once you have an encounter with Jesus, the love of God wipes away all condemnation and sends you away born anew. Turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Once you become in Christ, you become a new creation. You become new. The Bible says, "Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new." When you look at verse 17 in chapter 5, just getting right down to Paul's point. "Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new." I realize there are people that want to even keep you in condemnation only if by accident, reminding you who you used to be, reminding you what you used to do. But once you're in Christ, feel free to let them know, I'm no longer that person that you speak of, because I've been born anew. Keep that condemnation away from me. I recognize who I used to be. I recognize what I used to be. What I used to do, I'm not that person anymore. Condemnation should not reside in a believer's life. Number 4 in our 5 steps. You must know that your past does not limit God. You must know that your past does not limit God. This will be our stopping point today, and we'll pick up next time. But let's go ahead and dig into number 4 a little bit. In John chapter 8, we're going to end up resting in verses 51 through 58. We've moved past the woman caught in adultery, but we're in the same chapter. Jesus talking to some of the same folks. 51 reads like this. Verily, verily, I say unto you, if a man keep my saying, he shall never see death. Then said the Jews unto him, now we know thou hast a devil. Now we know you're crazy. Now we know you're speaking lies. Now we know you can't trust you. We can't trust you because you're saying that if a man believes in you, he'll never see death. Abraham is dead. There are people from the past that we believe about in our faith, Jesus. They believed in you. They're our patriarchs. And aren't they dead? So how can you possibly say, if anybody believes in you, they shall not see death? Now we know you got a devil. Now we know you twisted. Abraham is dead. And the prophets, they dead too. And thou sayest, if a man keepeth my saying, he shall never taste death. Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead? And the prophets are dead? Who maketh thou thyself? Who are you making yourself out to be? Who are you making yourself out to be? Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom ye say that he is your God. Yet ye have not known him, but I know him, and if I should say I know him not, I shall be a liar unto you. But I know him and keep his saying. For your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. And then said the Jews unto him, art thou not yet 50 years old, and hast thou seen Abraham? Abraham was dead so long ago, you ain't even 50. How can you say you even can come close to you guys seeing each other? He's talking about spiritual things. They're not catching on. It's not clicking. Jesus said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am. Say that with me. Before Abraham was, I am. Now, what he's getting ready to break down for them is the scenario that we're going to pick up next time, and that's this. I don't have any limits. There's no bounds on what I can do. So that whatever you think of the past, it don't apply to me. Now, why do I want to stop there? Because God gave me something this morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come here with these great people. I'm going to be ready because some of them aren't going to like me. They're going to see what I'm wearing. I'm like, God, it's football Sunday. It's football Sunday. I don't think I need this. It's football Sunday. Now, you gotta understand football. And I don't know if you understand football, everybody, but let me give you some quick football rules. Football rules go like this. You can close your Bibles up, child. We ain't go there no more. You can close your Bibles up. Football rules go like this. Now, for those of you who may not know, when you kick a field goal, that's worth 3 points. Okay? When you score a touchdown, that's worth 6 points. All right. That's all you need to know for what God shared with me. I was sitting there, studying this morning, and I was telling Greta, I was like, she came and said, hey, babe, how you doing? I said, I'm doing good, but I keep writing stuff on this paper, and I'm trying to keep it to the point. And it's like, but God's showing me something. I was like, my mind was like blown, like completely blown. It was like, he said, okay. I said, God, look at this. It's football Sunday, right? I said, you know who you are to me? He said, who am I, B? Who am I to you? I said, you know who you are to me? I say, God, you are that play that I pull out when I'm down 3 points and ain't no time on the clock, and I kick that 65-yard field goal to take the game into overtime. That's who you are to me. He was like, okay, but you don't get me yet. So I was like, okay. What you talking about then? He say, what make you think in your life that I want anything to end in a tie? Amen. I want you to win. Yes. I was like, okay. All right. So I was like, check it, God, check it. This is what I'm doing. Like, check it. All right, check this out. I was like, this is who you are then. Amen. You that play when I got to define something for you. A Hail Mary. Right. Okay, a Hail Mary is a pass that a quarterback throws. And where that comes from is back in the 70s, there's a quarterback that he was in a game. It looked like he wasn't going to win. They were down, and they asked him afterwards, because he ended up throwing a pass and winning the game, man, what was going through your mind? He said, all I did, he was Catholic, Hail Mary full of grace is a prayer. He said, all I did was I closed my eyes and I said, Hail Mary, and I just threw it. So that's where that football analogy comes from. It's important. So I said, God, you know who you are to me. You know who you are to me. You that play when it's 2 seconds left on the clock before I hike the ball. I'm down 5. I need 5. I'm down by 5. I get the ball and I throw a Hail Mary 90 yards down, and the guy catch it and I win the game. He said, you don't get me yet. I was like, but I won the game, bro. I won the game. He's like, you don't get me yet. You still don't get me yet. I said, well, then, explain it to me then. Because I thought I had you on that one. Yeah. I was going to read this, but read this on your own. We ain't coming back to it. He said, Benjamin, this is who I am. This is who I am. He says, as your head coach, when you open up the opponent's playbook, there's all kind of plays in the book. But when you open up the playbook on my side, it's only 3 words written, 3 letters in there, G-O-D. I'm your play. Your play, every play you run is just God. That's your play. It's like, okay, all right. So what does that mean to me? He says, this is who I am. I am the play you run when you are down 30 points in the 4th quarter with 2 seconds left on the clock. I said, that's an impossibility. I can't win that. Even if they kick the ball off to me, 2 seconds go, I can't score that many times and still win the game. He said, but that's who I am to you. That's the God play. He said, what you mean? What you talking to me? I'm like, what are you saying? He said, here's how it goes down. I want you to go and look in the book of Joshua where I made the sun stand still. Come on now. He said, I want you to read it where the moon stopped, the whole earth stopped. He said, I'm the play you call when the enemy think there is an impossibility for you to ever win this game. And every time he look up, you scoring, and that same 2 seconds on the clock, he said, who's holding that sun still? Who's holding that moon still? That clock should be running. You should be over right now. That's the God I am to you. I was like, boom. It don't matter how much time on the clock. It don't matter as long as the blood is running warm in your veins, as long as you're still alive, as long as you still believing, I can come through for you and you will win. Amen. I was like, woo! You something else. I said, you have just stretched my belief.
Yes, yes. Amen, amen.
That's the kind of God we serve. We can wrap up. That's the kind of God we serve.
Yes.
I sat there as the team comes up. I sat there, and I was part in my office just going crazy, and I was part blown away, and I was like trying to get my head around that still. He told me, God is the play that I call when I'm down 30, 2 seconds left on the clock. What he was telling me, all you have to do is call my name. That's all you need. If we have moments of solid belief, we will see God come through. Not based on what we see. Not based on what they say about us, but what God says about us.
Amen.
Amen.
We pray that today's message was a blessing to you. If you would like to help us further expand the vision, simply text the word GIVE-RTM to the number 41444 or visit us online at www.revealingtruth.org. Now remember, Jesus loves you.